Welcome all to our fourth and final Power Up session. We are really glad you could join us today. We are back talking about program sustainability. Today, we'll have a quick review of the key ideas from our first three sessions. We'll also highlight ways that our partners in higher ed, our IHE partners, can help support residency program sustainability. That's all coming today. Finally, also today you'll have some time to reflect and think about what actions you might take after participating in this series. So thank you again all for being here. We're looking forward to this final conversation together. Of course, we present this work in partnership. It's between SRTAC, the statewide Residency Technical Assistance Center, and TRL, the Residency Lab. Together in this series, we have shared practical ideas and highlighted real examples from the field. Here's our quick introduction. If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Javier Vaca, and I am the Southern Region Hub Lead for SRTAC.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Bennett. I work as one of the SRTAC coordinators out of the Santa Clara County Office of Education.
Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Heather Michelle, and I am the director of the Residency Lab. Super excited to be here, and I'll pass it to Javier.
All right, I think I'm going to take it from this point. So welcome, everyone. We just want to start with a brief overview of our intended outcomes for today's session. As Javier was kind of mentioning at the beginning, we're going to explore connections across our first three power-up sessions that we've held. We'll review some of the key lessons that have come up so far and how you can reflect on factors that feel most relevant to your own program or context. Next, we'll learn from one of our IHE residency practitioners about their innovative approaches to supporting organizational sustainability. And it will give us some kind of practical ideas and strategies that we can adapt to our own programs. And then finally, we'll spend some time reflecting and engaging in ideation. You'll have the chance to generate some of your own ideas and identify maybe at least one concrete next step that you can bring back to your partnership teams. Our goal is that by the end of today's session, everyone is leaving with some actionable insights and a clear step in moving forward in this work. And this is a quick look at how we'll spend our time together over the next 2 hours. We'll start with welcome and connection, which is what we're doing right now. We'll recap Power Up 1 through 3, key themes and takeaways. After that, we'll be hearing directly from our guest speaker, Dr. Heather Horsley from Fresno State, about the work they've been doing across their many residency partnerships. We'll take a short 5-minute break a little after the top of the hour, and then we'll move into ideation time across our teams. This will be your time to kind of think about how all of this year's content is coming together and brainstorm other creative sustainability strategies that may be emerging. And then we'll wrap up with some reminders. So that's a roadmap for our time together today. Plenty of opportunities to learn from content, from our peers, and from your own reflections. And then just a quick reminder, we've created a one-page resource document. We're sharing that in the chat right now. This is a living document. We update it and revisit it with each session. Inside, you'll find all of our slide decks, core resources that we've shared, like the characteristics of effective residency programs. Your program planning folders are linked there, as well as all the session-specific materials. And if you missed any previous sessions, you can access everything from this document, as well as we've added the recordings from our first 2 sessions are also linked there at the bottom. Session 3 and session 4 after today will be uploaded there soon. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
Thank you so much, Amy. So as we begin this journey for our last session, we want to use the characteristics of effective teacher residency programs as our backdrop. Again, this is the sounding board for all things that we do at SRTech and the Residency Lab. As a reminder, it serves as a common framework for all residency programs at various levels of implementation. It exemplifies the scope and complexity of development for our residency programs. It centers equity and justice and really serves as the basis for all support and assistance as the Residency Lab and the SRTAC reflect and think about their offerings every year. We really begin with thinking of our characteristics of effective residency programs. And so with that, we will be focusing on financial sustainability today. As we move forward, I also want to draw your attention again to our planning tool. which can be accessed in each one of the drives. So again, each program has their own Google folder with residency implementation resources. It has the module workbooks. It has the running notes page. It has a copy of the characteristics, and it has that planning tool. As we unpack today, we're going to be touching on that institutional sustainability piece. And one way that SRTAC and the lab is choosing to support your institutional sustainability is really creating common documents that can be used throughout the life of your residency program and implementation. And those can be accessed in your sample folder. So again, I wanted to draw your attention to that. I also want to, again, kind of ground ourselves in the residency sustainability framework that was designed by the lab. I think it's been 2 years now. We've kind of been referencing it as we've moved through this new era of sustainability and really thinking about how we can make our residency program sustainable. It's important to touch on this every time that we meet and every time that we kind of unpack these ideas of sustainability, because it really is important to think of sustainability more than just the financial piece, but also kind of encompassing these other two pillars. And so I'm going to talk briefly about institutional sustainability, financial sustainability, and engagement sustainability. So that institutional sustainability is something I've already kind of touched on, right? It's having those common documents, it's having those artifacts that really support the longevity and the long-term implementation of your residency program. Again, if you have been in space with the residency lab or SRTAC with any amount of time, we are really going to encourage you to get that mission statement in place, get those shared aspirational objectives, actionable strategic plan, and well-defined roles and staffing. So even if you're a newer residency program, right, these are some things that we're hoping that you're engaging in and working towards to really support that institutional sustainability. But again, if you're a program that has been around for several years, maybe you need to go back and kind of revisit these things so people are clear and your partners are clear on what the roles and responsibilities are. And so this is our institutional sustainability piece. And then, of course, financial sustainability, our second pillar, right? And so financial sustainability is really about being self-reliant. Self-reliant is knowing what funds are available to you, both inside and outside your residency program, right? So outside funds, an easy example would be the CTC funding that we've all received. But what are those funds inside your institutions, both IHE and LEA, that could further support the effective implementation of your residency program? And where can we reallocate funds that are already there to support and kind of meet the goals of the larger LEA? I think a part of this really, oh, sorry, Amy. Just a couple more ideas about that. Just really understanding the kind of the non-negotiables of your residency program. Like, what are the things that you are not willing to compromise within your specific context? And then really determining what's kind of the bare minimum. If we had to go bare minimum for this, what would it be and what would the cost be, and really moving towards that. Okay. And then lastly is engagement sustainability. So this is really about keeping all partners engaged, both at the IHE and the LEA, making sure that leadership on both sides have a really clear and concrete understanding of the residency program and the impact it has. And so a part of this is making sure that your data is clear and that people know about it, you're communicating about it, and that leadership at the highest level at the LEA and the IHE have that concrete experience. And that you're looking to engage multiple partners in this work so that if you do have to ask something for something later on, they have a concrete understanding of the impact that it's making and possibly how it could serve them in their work as well. And so those are our three pillars. And so just kind of thinking about those three things that I unpacked as a backdrop for our work this morning, I did want to take a second to give us a moment to connect because our work is largely relational. And so go ahead and put in the chat an emoji that shows your current mood. And how are we doing Monday? Do we have a case of the Mondays? I know I do. How is everyone doing? Leslie's happy. Wonderful. Jennifer gives Oh, she looks like she's cool in those shades. I see some joy. I see a wink. Holly Gonzalez is in the fog. Welcome, Holly. Lots of sunglasses. Oh, Heather Horsley has a tropical moment. Love that. Brooke offers her flowers. Thank you, Brooke. A couple smiles. Sarah's like not ready for her Monday. Looks like maybe she needs another cup of coffee. I totally understand that. Um, so yes, thank you. It's wonderful being in space with all of you. I see so many familiar faces, and I'm looking forward to the ideas that will be hatched and the solutions to be had this morning. Um, and with that, oh, more fog. A lot of people in the fog. Yes, I'm feeling that fog, Tina. Okay, I think we're ready to move on. Thank you, Amy.
All right. So, as we move into today's content, we want to frame our thinking around a couple of guiding questions. You won't be answering these right now, but we invite you to kind of keep them in the back of your mind as we move throughout today, and we'll come back to them later for reflection and discussion. The first question is really, what creative funding approaches have we not yet explored that could be piloted or scaled to support sustainability in our context? And so, as you listen to the examples and ideas shared today, think about what possibilities might exist in your own setting that you haven't yet tested. And then the second question is, what would that look like in practice in the next year or two? So, in other words, how might these ideas begin to translate into real steps or strategies within your program or within your organization? Again, we're not responding to these right now. We just want to hold them kind of in the back of our mind as a lens as we dig into today's content, and then we'll revisit them later and give you some time in teams to reflect and share. And so, as we mentioned earlier, we want to start today by briefly revisiting our first three sessions, kind of where we've been and where we're going next. And so our first session, dating all the way back to November, really helped ground, or sorry, October, really helped ground this year's work. We began by reviewing data from last spring's TRGP, the Teacher Residency Grant Program Survey from West Ed, to really better understand where programs were in terms of planning for sustainability and what approaches they were already considering and what types of support they were hoping for. And then from there, we spent time digging into the sustainability framework, which we've revisited in each session. It's what Heather was just discussing, to kind of build a shared understanding of what sustainability means within educator residency programs. So again, not just focusing on the financial piece of that, but also the institutional sustainability and engagement sustainability pillars. And then we started building some foundational knowledge around LCAP essentials. We had an expert from San Diego County Office of Education join us to talk a little bit about how local goals and educator residency programs can intersect and align. And so during that session, we also provided a high-level overview of the SRTAC white paper that we put out last spring that was titled Leveraging LCAP Funding Insights and Best Practices for Sustainable Residency Programs. And we highlighted how 3 California school districts, Bakersfield City School District, San Juan Unified School District, and Victor Elementary School District were integrating their teacher residency programs directly into their LCAP actions to support long-term sustainability. And one of the key recommendations from that particular resource that we focused on was the importance of aligning residency program goals with existing district priorities, which can help position residencies as part of kind of these broader district strategies rather than as a standalone initiative. So we used that paper to kind of launch us and heard from those programs in terms of like what a key recommendation was for doing this work. And then we tried to really craft the rest of our sessions around that focus. And so to better understand that kind of alignment piece between local goals and residency programs, we brought in Dr. Lisa Herzog from the San Diego County Office of Education to provide us with an LCAP 101 overview. She walked us through the purpose of the LCAP, explaining that it's a 3-year plan that outlines how LCFF funds are used to meet district goals that are aligned with the state's 8 priorities for improving student outcomes. And then we spent some time reviewing the overall structure of the LCAP. As Lisa shared when she met with us, the LCAP is almost like its own genre of text. It really helps to understand how to read it in order to navigate and comprehend it. And so we walked through some of the key sections, including the plan summary, engaging educational partners. Who was involved in the creation of your LCAP? What stakeholder groups did this go in front of? We looked at the specific goals and actions, as well as the action tables, and then whether or not actions were increasing or improving services for students. And so one of the things that Lisa really emphasized was that everyone can play a role in the LCAP development process. And she really encouraged participants on that call to get involved by joining advisory committees, whether it's ELAC or SC, attending public hearings, and participating in surveys or other opportunities to provide input in terms of what you feel should be an area of need for your organization, for your district, or if you're an IHE, for your district partner. And during that session, teams also had the chance to kind of explore their own LCAPs through a scavenger hunt activity, which helped them become more familiar with where information lives in the document and how residency related priorities might show up there. So again, just wanted to kind of give you a quick high-level overview of that session. All of the materials are linked in that one-page resource document. We can drop that again, as well as a recording from that session. So if you missed it and want to go back and based on what you heard me just kind of share, revisit some of those discussions, you can. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Heather to give us kind of a high-level overview of session number 2.
Thank you, Amy. So as we continue our walk down memory lane, our second session was November 17th. And really this session added to and kind of built upon our new knowledge of the LCAP fund and how to use it to support residency sustainability. So we did a deeper dive of the LCAP. We heard from 3 spotlight programs that are using LCAP funds to support their residency work. And we looked at how we might align the residency goals to the LCAP itself more specifically. In terms of the LCAP feature, we looked at local control funding formula, LCFF priorities, in line with what Amy was just unpacking. We looked at increased or improved services, and we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive right now just to kind of show you that clear connection that we want to make sure that you understand. And then really looking at how the work of the residency program connects to the initiatives and the objectives of local control funding formula. And again, a timeline for LCAP adoption. I think the timeline is really important as we're thinking about kind of backwards planning and making sure that we're meeting some of those timeline dates. And so when we look at the actual LCAP itself, there's different priorities. And one priority we really want to draw your attention to is under basic services. And Amy is going to pull that up really quickly because teacher residency programs are written into LCAP funding very clearly. It is very clearly written here. Can you read it, Amy? Because I can't quite see it that far. Sorry.
I'm going to unmute myself. So yes, we pulled up, this is actually a link to the Department of Education's website and their best practices for LCFF Priority 1, which Priority 1 has a couple of different things listed in basic services, teachers, its instructional materials, its facilities. But we just really wanted to hone in on the third one down for teachers, which is on recruiting and retaining qualified and effective teachers. And again, these are best practices from CDE, model practices in alignment with the recruitment and retention of qualified and effective teachers. And they specifically call out partnering with local institutions of higher learning to create teacher residency programs, listed as a best practice aligned to LCFF Priority 1.
So we just wanted to make sure that you knew about that, that you were aware of that. Again, this goes into that pillar of financial sustainability piece. What are the funds both inside your institution and outside your institution that can support residency sustainability? And LCAP funds is one of those within your institution that can support that. We did want to take a moment just to remind you of the dates and the timeline for the LCAP. Ongoing kind of due date is the educational partner engagement. This is where the LEAs consult with ed partners to review performance data and gather input for the upcoming LCAP year. Then on or before February 28th is your mid-year report presentation. Ongoing spring is your LCAP development and revisions. And then on or before July 1st is LCAP adoption. The LEA must adopt its LCAP on or before July 1st. And so kind of understanding that timeline can help you backwards plan and begin to think about and strategize how you might write your residency program into LCAP funding. And then finally, we closed out session 2 with 3 different spotlights: Morongo, PSUSD, and San Juan Unified. And again, as Amy mentioned, this session is recorded, and you can see how each one of those partners use LCAP and continues to use LCAP, excuse me, to support their residency work. And I'll pass it to Javier.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. So thinking about our third session, which took place in January, we shifted our focus to strategic staffing models as another pathway toward sustainability. We explored how districts can leverage existing paid roles within the LEA to support residents while they are completing their preparation programs. The goal of that session was to think about how staffing structures can both strengthen the residency experience for candidates and also help districts build more sustainable program models. During that session, we had the opportunity to hear from Jennifer Bland from the Learning Policy Institute. She shared a wonderful presentation about the great things happening with residency in Texas. She highlighted how many programs are using strategic staffing models to support residents and meet district staffing needs. One of the key ideas that she discussed was how residents can take on part-time instructional support roles as part of their experience. These roles could include positions like substitute teacher, paraprofessional, tutor, or enrichment teacher. In many cases, districts can use already allocated funding from existing budget lines, and those budget lines could then help provide stipends or additional income for residents as they are completing their program. Jennifer Bland shared with us many professional learning benefits that come from these type of roles that residents take on. For example, when residents serve as substitute teachers, they're able to step into different grade levels and classroom environments, which helps them see how curriculum is sequenced and how instruction looks across subjects and different grades. When residents work as paraprofessionals, they gain a deeper understanding of how to support students with all types of learning needs, and then also build those strong relationships with one-on-one individual students. And some continued benefits that we talked about: if residents take on roles such as tutoring or serving as enrichment teachers, they gain valuable experience with differentiated instruction and learning acceleration strategies. And again, get that one-on-one experience with students in those roles. Across all of these roles that Jennifer Bland talked with us about, residents gain insight into how teachers of record collaborate with support staff because they're actually serving in those support roles and working with teachers. The residents are actually taking on those roles. And then to help see these ideas and examples from the field, we heard from districts in California implementing strategic and creative staffing models within their own programs. Lemon Grove and Escondido shared examples of paraprofessional residency models, while San Ramon Valley shared their structured substitute residency model. And then again, if you wanted to rewatch this session, our recording of session number 3 will be live on YouTube very soon.
All right. So now that we've had a chance again to give just a very quick high level overview of those sessions, we want to kind of bring our focus back to these guiding questions. And as you think about what we've covered so far this year, you'll notice that the majority of our discussions around local funding, around staffing, have been primarily centered on the LEA or district perspective, if you will. Like you can see like the programs that we're featuring, all LEAs that have been talking about the work that they've been doing in alignment to whether it's transitioning to local funding or implementing a staffing model. What we haven't done is spent as much time exploring sustainability strategies from the IHE side of the partnership. And that's exactly what we have planned for you today. Whether you are an IHE partner representative on this call to be able to kind of hear from another that's in a job alike position as you, or if you're an LEA on this call to hear, what is something innovative that an IHE partner can be doing to then take back to engage in those conversations with your respective IHEs. And so it's my pleasure at this time to introduce Dr. Heather Horsley. As you can see on the screen, Heather wears many hats at Fresno State, but today she's joining us in her role as coordinator of Fresno State's teacher residency program partnerships, of which they have many. I've actually had the pleasure of working with Heather firsthand in my previous role as an LEA residency partnership lead, and she brings a tremendous amount of expertise and insight to this work. Dr. Horsley is currently recognized for her coordination of educator workforce development through large scale educator preparation partnerships. She has played a key role in scaling teacher residency programs across urban and rural districts while addressing financial barriers to career advancement. She co-led the design of one of California's first PK3 early childhood education credential programs and has coordinated state and national accreditation processes as levers for quality improvement. As a current CSU Equity Leaders Fellow, her work integrates community knowledge by collaborating with elders and youth to advance cultural resilience through arts-based programming. And so today, Heather has kindly agreed to share her perspective and experience, highlighting some of the innovative approaches that Fresno State has implemented to support the sustainability of their residency program. So please join me in welcoming Heather. I am going to stop share so that she can share her screen.
Thanks, Amy. That was a really nice introduction. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here with you. Um, I figure before I launch into some of the work we've been engaged in with our partners at Fresno State, that it might be helpful to explain some of my connection and history with residency programs more specifically. So I'm originally born and raised and from Chicago, and I was in my second year of my doctoral program, and I applied for a adjunct position at National Louis University. And when I got hired, they said to me like, "Hey, you're like really interested in my research assistantships and stuff." And the work I was doing as faculty at the University of Illinois Chicago was really focused on teacher education. So they saw that in my CV and were talking to me about it and say, "Hey, we have this new partnership with the Academy for Urban School Leadership, AUSL." And AUSL is kind of seen as one of the earliest residency programs. And and so I was on the IHE side teaching when and getting to understand what is this model? Like, what is residency programs? How is it different from traditional models and things like that? And so I was teaching at the time social justice perspectives on the history and philosophy of American education. And I do believe that some of the teacher residents were really struggling to uh, initially to understand why this course wasn't just teaching them how to teach math, right? But I had the pleasure of guiding them through thinking about how social context matters we are here because of historical roots that have current political implications, and that shapes everything with like how we show up in our work, how we are in space with our students and so forth. So fortunately, over time, they started to, with some of my guidance, make that connection to their work as, newly teacher residents in this brand new AUSL program. So soon thereafter, I think AUSL kind of helped launch the National Center for Teacher Residencies, or they were like an initial partner. And so I've been kind of engaged with NCTR since they started. They're also based in Chicago, so we would bump shoulders often at different IHE, university events and stuff. And so fast forward to how I got to Fresno State. I had the great fortune to apply for a tenure line position at Fresno State. And that was in I came to Fresno State in August of 2017. And really, I think I was recruited to be part of a much bigger initiative than I even really knew about coming in as a new faculty member. And it was the New Generation of Educators initiative that was part of the CSU. And I had a specific role. I was a continuous improvement lead for Fresno State's program. And really, if you look at the trajectory of like what NGEI did, and it was an incubator largely for teacher residency programs within California, especially linked to high impact practices of educator preparation within the CSU. And so I'm just going to put a link because I have to confess a little bit. Had kind of a rough week last week. I know we're all kind of going through a lot of things below the surface all the time. And I had a lot going on last week into this week. And um, I didn't get all my resources to Amy in time to add it to the nice, formatted sheet that they provide you. But I just wanted to give you the formative evaluation of the NGEI because I think you'll be able to see some of the connections to residency work in California, like broadly speaking. Now that you know a little bit about my history with teacher residency, how I got to Fresno State, I want to share with you how Fresno State is working with our partners to build, support, and sustain a residency ecosystem that is mindful of what the residency lab has like gifted us in so many ways, the residency sustainability framework that you got a refresher on and has been a core framework of these power up sessions. And so I need to start sharing my screen so you can see my slides. So I'm going to get ourselves going, myself going here. And I'm probably going to share a few documents and other things, and I'll try to keep my eye on the chat as well. But Amy and team, if you see anything in the chat that you'd like me to pause and we should discuss, I think that's a great great option too. So before I move into specific examples of what the three lenses of the sustainability framework can look like, so that institutional, financial, and engagement sustainability, I thought it'd be helpful to also provide some context for our programs at Fresno State. One of the big pieces is that we are a university-based residency program. We don't have a center. It's not a center within Fresno State. It's just literally our the IHE, the School of Education model, partnering with LEAs, and because there's different ways to structure residency, right? And I know many of you already know this about Fresno State too. I see a lot of my friends here today who are very aware of the work we do at Fresno State too. And so with that, when I got to Fresno State, really there was a partnership framework, and Fresno Unified was leading the charge to through a teacher quality partnership grant to really build out the first residency partnership with Fresno State in our region. And so from there, going back to the NGEI work and kind of moving forward. We now have, let's see, I guess 7 partnerships here with different LEAs. And then all of them are focused on those high need hiring areas and have some different emphasis based on that. We also like to think about, is there some specific uh, content area that is really important to the LEA, and what expertise or what kind of cool things can we link that into from Fresno State in terms of faculty and so forth. So, for example, like the Fresno County Rural West Consortium, which is our rural residency consortium with 4 smaller rural districts in the northwestern part of the county, we also really focus in on trauma-informed and healing-centered practices relevant to the rural context. So we try to do that in partnership with each of our LEAs. And then you can kind of see some size elements here, how many we've interviewed, how many were enrolled, and where we're at currently at the number of cohorts that we've had. So Fresno Unified is our longest standing partner. We're into we'll be bringing in this fall our 12th cohort. And then Sanger is our next and longest standing residency partner. And I really do like to think, it's a really big thing at Fresno State. We are pride of the valley. You see signs everywhere. It's in the commercials on football games and stuff like that. So I would like to encourage our president and our provost to start to think of our teacher residency programs also as being part of this pride of the valley. Um, so I'm gonna pretty much kind of talk us through and hopefully spark some, questions and your own reflections on the work you're doing around the 3 elements of the framework. And so I'm going to start with institutional sustainability, and then there's been, I feel like through the Power Ups, more focus on institutional and financial sustainability. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time in engagement sustainability with all of you today. And so with institutional sustainability, and I think Dr. Michelle Heather shared this too, or you've heard it before, is that we like to think about moving into sustainability, right? When you get that really tough question of what are we going to do when the grant funding ends, it largely then focuses in just on the financial sustainability and the funding component. I agree with this sustainability framework very strongly that before we can get to financial sustainability, we have to think about institutional sustainability and how the partnership is like coexisting and hopefully co-thriving together. And I really like the concept of reciprocal partnerships. Some of this comes out of the research practice partnership line of study and theory base and so forth. You hear a lot in residency, like a key characteristic is authentic partnerships. And I sometimes feel like, what the heck does that mean? Even though I'm doing the work, right? I mean, I get it, but I think there's more to it than just saying it's authentic. So that's where I lean a little bit more in framing it around reciprocal partnership, thinking about it as a collaborative and mutually beneficial relationship based on shared power, relational trust, which we know from Tony Brike's work is the connective tissue that holds continuous improvement for schools together, and equal exchange rather than a hierarchical relationship. Like, I think, Fresno State's been pretty blunt since I've gotten to be a assistant professor there. Our deans were very clear that we don't want to have a stance with our partners that we know best and we're going to tell them what to do and things like that. And really thinking about the end user, so the district, right? Your districts are gonna we get the honor of working at the really tiny bit of the beginning of a educator's journey. Our hope is we get them into induction and fully into leadership roles and sustaining their careers within the district. So again, there's a perception, right, that higher ed should be like leading the charge around these things. And I really credit our deans at the time, Dean Barry, for example, really kind of stressing that you have to really listen to your district partners and realize your position in that you're just one part of this bigger long-term 30-year like career journey for someone. Kind of puts you in your place a little bit, which I actually really like that. And so when I think about these partnerships, it's really involving two-way communication, joint decision making, and shared resources to achieve the goals that we have for our educators and for the communities in our region. And so, part of the way that I've really seen as like a specific example that's worked really well at Fresno State is to think about the mutual benefits in the reciprocal partnership. So again, that mutually beneficial relationship. And one way to do that very like concretely is to really look at aligning your residency mission and outcomes to strategic priorities or strategic plans from both sides of the partnership, like looking at it from the university side and looking at it from the LEA side. And so, one of the CSU, Cal State, just actually recently um, updated our strategic priorities. So I'm going to put that link in there since it's pretty new, and I don't know if they've done a lot yet to get it out in front of people. But I think you'll definitely see some key pieces there that speak directly to residency, which is fantastic. And the other way to consider mutual beneficial aspects of residency is to leverage accreditation. This can happen on both sides of the house of the partnership. So if your LEA, for example, has already accreditation and they do in-house induction, well, we know a high impact practice or key characteristic of residency is that continuation beyond them completing the program. It's into induction, right? And the support's there. And so, like for in my case, the residency programs that have that here in the Central Valley have their own accredited induction programs. I sit on like their advisory boards and, contribute to that process. I'm part of their accreditation interviews and things like that, right? And then on the university side, we can use accreditation to put a spotlight on residency and really make a strong claim for why they should have sustainable funding. And you can do comparative charts for this that really makes a compelling case for, so comparing your EPP or your residency to like two or three other similarly sized programs. What support did they have versus what support Fresno State has? And once you start to see those differences, you can really then, make the argument to your provost and president that this is why this is important, and accreditation actually says we need to do it this way or needs to be strengthened in this way. And so I bring this up because as a LEA, I think as a leader in residency from the LEA side of the house, I would encourage you to talk to your IHE partners, like ask these questions, like how do you use accreditation to make the case for residency programs? How do you use accreditation to leverage for additional capacity for new hires, for maybe a new department of clinical practice, things like that. So I hope that's a little helpful, a little insight about leveraging accreditation. But we also know that partnerships can be really like full of a lot of energy, and there can be some partnership pitfalls. And some of those potential pitfalls, I'm not going to speak to all these today, but there's a couple that I really definitely I do want to point out that I think I've seen come up like a lot, not just at Fresno State, but across multiple partnerships. And the first one is differing priorities. Um, Look, universities, we're like cats. You're like herding cats, right? We are a centuries old institution, like literally centuries old institution that was to protect and prioritize independent thinking. Um, and so new ideas could be protected and challenged in a way that was productive for the public good, right? So with that, though, it sometimes gets translated, to be honest, and I see it in some of my peers, into you can't tell us what to do, right? And so that's a real challenge in higher ed. There's a lot of freedom and autonomy in higher ed positions, especially for tenure line faculty members or tenured faculty members. And so, what can happen there is then knowing that that's very different from when most of us understand like what's happening in a district. And we hear this from faculty who move into higher ed positions from being like superintendents and so forth. Why aren't you just telling us what to do? Just tell us what to do and we'll execute that, you know? So what I'm getting at is when you have differing priorities, what can happen is the university is like slow and deliberate and maybe entrenched, like not very nimble all the time, or it takes multiple committees to get something to move and change, right? And it's really emphasizing also theory and research and may lose sight of the practical implications, where we know our district partners are heavily focused on the day-to-day classroom practice and immediate student outcomes like K-12 student or TK, pre-K, the whole thing, up to 12th grade outcomes, right? And there's a difference feeling of urgency. And so, how do we work together in our partnerships to align our priorities and feel that they're complementary to each other? Because sometimes alignment also doesn't really vibe well with university people. And so I always talk about it being complementary. Like, how do we complement each other and push each other and add to each other's strengths in service of our student teachers, teacher residents, and our the teachers in that are our mentors, and then the communities in which we're serving. And so I think a really big last piece here is that just to think that people power the partnerships. And so I'm going to share a little bit about what that looks like. I did put a practice tip here. I think this is really helpful just to do like a sorting activity with a partner, even where you identify key program components, recruitment, admissions, advising, just all these pieces. Who works with mentor teachers, mentor teacher PD, resident PD, like those key program components, and then discuss who leads it. And ideally, you'd like a lead. In my in my experience, you would want your LEA partner to say, I'm leading this, and then IHE partner saying, I'm leading this component. However, that doesn't mean that it's still not collaborative. You still then discuss how you will collaborate across those key components. But I do want to speak a little bit to the people power. So we know that you, within districts and residencies, can help support strategic staffing in terms of paras and substitute teachers, right? And other classified employees. But we also should think about residency from a strategic partnership staffing practices as well. And so I lean on Jim Collins's work from Good to Great and his other pieces around business leadership here to think about this question. Do we have the right people working on the right high priority tasks at the right time? And even at the hiring stage of who we're bringing into residency teams and so forth is thinking about how are we aligning staff with core values, so the mission and character and what our goals are of the program, and then the role requirements or the competencies needed to create intentional action. And so there are also the NCTR staffing toolkit really helped Fresno State think through this component. So I'm going to put that link in the chat for you. And if I can get it really fast, maybe I can't. It was right there. I'll get that to you. Um, it was really helpful to think of it. There's so many, key roles. So thinking about their just, role descriptions and things like that. There, from Fresno State's standpoint, there's kind of a non-negotiable, although flexible negotiable, um, two people that we feel in our research from like hearing from residents and so forth are incredibly valuable to the success of the partnership. And that's the district liaison and oops, I have a meant to put university. I'll make that quick change there. University liaison. At Fresno State, they're called our PIR, the professor in residence. A lot of our LEAs that are partnered with us with our call them the residency coordinator. So like what Amy was talking about, she was essentially like Fresno Unified's FTRP residency coordinator. And then we had a professor in residence who um, layered in and worked directly with her. I'm trying to think who you were working with at the time, actually, because I worked
A
with you a lot
couple. I
too.
had Dr. Hart for a while
Oh
and then
yeah, Steve.
Dr.
Yeah, yeah. So, and what we like to think that what we attempt to do is have one team per 30 residents. And that's based off of the NCTR staffing toolkit. And so I would say, for example, right, like you saw the numbers in the one slide, FTRP is our largest residency, and we've had close to 90 residents in a calendar year pursuing different credential areas, but um, still 90 residents. So we would want a team that has like essentially three university liaisons with three like residency district liaisons working with 90 residents. That would be the goal of what we're trying to do. Do we always get there? No, but we get pretty close, or we bring people in when we need to. Um, was there any questions in the chat or anything? I'm not seeing.
I
Just
think
making sure.
one question came up a little earlier on, Heather, when you were sharing your different pathways around, is the residency model the only pathway for teacher prep at Fresno State?
No, we have three, well, actually four pathways. We have the integrated teacher education program, which is ITEP, which is part of our liberal studies undergraduate degree. Excuse me. And then we have post-bac. At the post-bac pathways, we have residency, internship, and also what we would consider a traditional model of educator preparation that doesn't have always the same kind of structure as residency. However, that's another thing that's been helping our other pathways is residency and the data we collect ends up and through accreditation, we've been using all of that to make changes that benefit every student in educator preparation in all of our pathways. So, um, but yeah, those are the main ones. I think I caught them all. There's a question about ITEP. Currently, our ITEP candidates are not residents. They're in their own cohort. However, we have had liberal studies students on a 3-year plan that, because they have a specific scholarship, move in and do their 4th year with us as a resident. So I hope that makes sense. We're able to still admit them because we're approved for ITEP. They're just not in the ITEP cohort. They come in to residency and for their 4th year of undergrad. Um, all right. So I do want to speak a little bit to financial sustainability. Really, this comes to a mindset around value proposition, and the best way uh, in my experience, to continue to make sure that powerful people understand the value of teacher residency programs is through consistent advocacy. Um, Having good data systems from both sides of the partnership to be able to speak to the evidence that of improved teacher quality, improved retention, specialized staffing solutions, right, with our paras and substitute teaching and and that we have proven standards for success. We're not gonna um, let one of these important residency characteristics go just because, right? We're gonna fight for them and make sure they're there to ensure that the quality of the program is stable. And so, a practice tip, something to consider if you haven't done this already. It's kind of like I thought about this out of my like organizing days. It's kind of doing a power analysis. And so it's like which partner has which sphere of influence, like who LEAs get to engage with a whole different group of like policymakers or their school board and things like that in different ways that I can. And I have access to other spheres that I can influence, as well as my dean and, department chairs and so forth, right? And other faculty. So, identifying those key spheres of influence and who has like kind of the power analysis is like who's the who? Like, who's the good person to get a side conversation with to advocate for your program, and develop those talking points together as a partnership? Like, we call this like the 30-second to 60-second elevator talk. If you just have 30 seconds with a powerful person, from your power analysis, sphere of influence analysis, what will you say? And how do you say it succinctly and in a way that makes them lean in, right? And get really excited about the work. And I highly recommend taking some time to rehearse those talking points. I think I've used AI recently to give me feedback on some of these talking points, so that's been really helpful too. So you can even get some feedback that way. And a specific set of practices for financial sustainability that we've engaged in at Fresno State has to do with how we're thinking about streamlining instructional support. And some of this has to do with really thinking about, again, not just making the instructional component just this on the side of the university, but how do we fully integrate and complement each other? And so we've had partnerships where we have university faculty co-teaching courses with teachers on special assignment or uh, other I think they're mostly teachers on special assignment, typically, that are working together. And it can look different. We always say to the faculty member and the district instructor, the co-teaching practices, we give them a framework for it, but they can shape it. So, for example, we really don't expect the district instructor to do assessment, like grade papers and things like that, but they will still come back together and talk about what are some of the themes from that assignment, right? But that's really the responsibility of the faculty member instructor. Also, being able to hire district staff as part-time lecturers or university coaches has been a really great way to streamline instructional support and be cost effective in that as well. And the one thing I learned recently that I didn't even think about is your IHE partner might have different ways that they like have contracts with and pay their university coaches hourly or by units. And so that can create different costs for the residency program. So you might also want to talk to your IHE partners about, well, how are the university coaches contracted and what's the pay around that and things like that. Because there might be other ways to do it that could be beneficial to the residency, like bottom line, the financial side of the residency. At Fresno State, we've also been able to work to eliminate the fieldwork seminar. It was a one-unit seminar that attached to our clinical practice courses in favor of the residents attending weekly or biweekly district PD. And so we really love how that uh, how that brought together um, again, the residents working more with their district, their residency training sites, more so than again, just kind of working on the university side of the partnership. And then we've also done some significant work to think about cost effectiveness for students and for costs of faculty teaching courses. So, and a big part of that was our move from a 3-semester residency program to a 2-semester program. So we've always been a 1 year, like, late May to June. But now we have a lot of our programs on a late August, I'm sorry, late July, depending on when they're coming back, early August to June. So more like the 10-month or at least 2-semester, which is a huge savings. Even at Fresno State being more affordable, that's still close to almost $5,000 in savings for the students. And it also saves Fresno State's so affordable, we almost like don't pay, we don't have enough money a lot of times to teach all the courses in our curriculum. So our deans also were very excited about the reduction in faculty teaching load that comes from these streamlining moments. And so I'll just let's see. Oops, sorry everyone, you got put into my email. Here we go. I wanted to show you. So this is kind of what's coming up actually. Sorry for being a little messy. But we'll kind of map out some of these changes. So we had the summer, and it was just so much coursework in the summer, especially for dual multiple subject and ed specialists. And then it was like a boot camp, and the residents were having a hard time with it too. Moving into a, oh, this is the residency apprenticeship one. My bad. I will go back to the slides because I'm ahead of myself. Oh, thanks everyone for your patience. Like I said, it's been a rough week or so. Um, what I wanted to share is the 3-semester program to the 2-semester program is actually a case study in the Sustainable Strategies for Funding Teacher Residencies report. And I know you already have access to this report in your resources from the lab and I think SR Tech too, but I'm going to put it here so you can access it as well. And so you'll see the case study of the senior teacher residency program and the changes from the 3-semester to the 2-semester. And a big part of that had to do with also feedback from our district partners and some of the challenges with we host our course work out in the district, and summertime expenses, overhead costs, and things like that were really challenging to keep the school space for the residency hub classroom going. And there were some, we felt like misalignment between lack of clinical opportunity in the summer with our coursework as well. So all of that kind of came together to inform our decision to move to the 2-semester program. And then the one that I was about to get to is that we're also thinking about being nimble. That's, like I said, really hard for universities to always be, but hopefully colleges and schools of education will be taking this on so that we're nimble in our innovation. So we're quick and light and evidence informed in our innovation. And so one of the areas in which we're really excited about is Fresno State is partnering. We have 2 partners approaching the registered apprenticeship program in teaching, and there's several benefits. One of the benefits of our current development of the 2 different partnerships. We have one that's focusing in first on the substitute teaching apprenticeship model, and we have one that's focusing in on the paraprofessional residency apprentice model. And so that's really exciting that we're engaging in that work, but it's an example of that financial sustainability that we have to keep looking for different ways to be nimble, innovative, braiding funding together, of course, and hopefully embedding institutionally funding for our programs so that it doesn't just go away when we have different, government policymakers, right? Things like that. So let's see, so Connie, you have some good questions in here. Um, Connie was asking, as we made these changes, did you struggle to keep your full-time faculty with full-time loads as you eliminate the fieldwork course and go to the three? Yeah. Um, it created anxiety among some faculty to see some of their courses sunset that they had been teaching. However, Fresno State still is a very large educator preparation program. So I think there's some elements here around we didn't really struggle because we have a lot of opportunities for our faculty to teach courses and with our graduate programs as well. So um, at this point, our faculty, while they had some reservations or anxiety initially and were worried, once they could see that their load didn't get destroyed and their jobs were still secured, they really came together around how beneficial this was for our students. I really do appreciate my colleagues at Fresno State for centering student needs and the barriers that come up for our students. So I think that ended up outweighing their own personal anxieties, especially once we showed them that it really didn't impact their load.
That's such a great example. Thank you. Can I just ask one other quick thing about the
Mhm.
seminar? When you say you eliminated the seminar so that the candidates could stay on campus and be involved in PD, did you actually eliminate the seminar from the lineup of courses, or did they still pay for a seminar? It just happened at the school site.
We eliminated it. They
Okay.
don't pay for it. Yeah, it's gone.
Okay.
Yep. Less unit load for even the student, right? I think when students see all those units they have to accomplish too, it gets overwhelming from a student perspective. So, how am I doing, Amy? Do I have a little bit of time, hopefully, to talk about belonging?
You're good.
Okay. Um, I want to get to this last pillar of the framework around engagement sustainability. And at Fresno State, we have been thinking a lot about belonging and centering belonging in our residency partnerships and practices. And um, of course, his name's eluding me right now. It'll come to me. But I was leaning on him, just thinking in our conversations with faculty and our partners from the LEA side and our administrators and leadership at Fresno State, what do we actually mean by equity? What is equitable engagement? And so, um, just put it simply, that it's, do our residents have what they need when they need it? Same for our mentor teachers, our university coaches, and our partnership leads. And so, a big part of the documentation that happens, especially if you have a CTC grant or a federal grant, is often driven by quantitative data, right? What are your outcomes in terms of, uh, you know, how many residents were enrolled at what time? How many units did they take? Um, how many of them passed their performance assessments? It's all like numbers of that, race and ethnicity, gender, right? And all of that's so super important, that I'm not downplaying that data set at all. We use it a lot and it's very informative. But the practice tip here is don't lose sight of the qualitative or the lived experience and documenting that experience as part of the way to sustain engagement at all levels of a partnership. So I think the framework largely talks about, and Heather, you could correct me if I'm wrong, the engagement sustainability pillar is really thinking about how do you engage with your partners, LEA, IHA, IHE. I think of this more expansively, like how are we sustaining engagement with all the key stakeholders of the residency programs? And so documenting the experience through established routines and a timeline for gathering that input is incredibly valuable. And then sometimes we don't spend the time like circling back to our interest holders or stakeholders in the program to clearly share how their input made an impact on the decision making. And the really tough work that even if their input didn't directly deliver on the decision that maybe there was some mismatched perception around that from like a resident thinks this should happen for the program, and to be able to explain like how the partnership thought to decide something differently. So it's still acknowledging and honoring the input, but also being doing the tough work of providing the rationale, like why were these decisions made, and so forth. A real practical example, we built this out with our Fresno Unified team, residency leadership team. Lots of back and forth of feedback, but really centering ourselves. And it's actually a statement. The belonging statement is the first thing that kind of goes in front of at the kickoff for our with our residency with our residents, and really kind of when we meet and have our discussions, it's kind of like, well, where are we at with this, right? Are we actually living up to what we said we were going to do? Or not just always do, but where our values lie? So I think being able to see some of these things, know that a common thing, even with the residents, we'll ask them to, you know, underline a piece of the statement that really speaks to them and circle something in the statement that is like a circling idea. It's an idea that they just can't let go of and they want to know more about. It's just, it's that little inside of their minds. So that's one example. And then we talk a lot at Fresno State about wraparound support, and we also talk a lot about just-in-time coaching. So why not put these together, just-in-time supports for our ability to engage sustainably. One of the things that we had as the residency, like I'm a residency partnership coordinator, so I'm in the thick a lot of times of like financial aid situations. And that's been a huge evolution of because a lot of the residency stipends, and maybe some of you still have this in this model, would come through the university. So then it would impact their cost of attendance and reduce how much they could actually get from other grants and scholarships. Now, all of our partners actually pay the stipend, the living stipend, directly to the resident out of the district, directly from the district HR and financial side of their house. Um, but through all that, I've had to learn a lot about financial aid. And one of the things that I'm encouraging all of you to do is talk to your IHE partners, if you haven't already, about financial aid and find someone on the team that's willing to really go in deep and meet with the director of financial aid, learn all the ins and outs and like what's stressful for the financial aid folks who could come and talk to the students about things. If they can't do it, what is something, how could they support me and, the IHE partner in having those conversations? And one of the things I learned is that cost of attendance, and this should be across every program, IHE side of the partnership, um, is that you can actually encourage your students to petition their cost of attendance based on where they are placed for student teaching. And that can actually increase the amount of money that they can access to help them with their travel costs to their sites. Of course, we put together a lot of grants and scholarship information for our students. We have had a zero cost textbook solution for a long time. Faculty, kind of going back to the priorities, and sometimes some of those tensions that can emerge. Faculty have rights, and so they have a lot of rights over their syllabus and what they're teaching. So generally, Fresno State has a commitment to zero cost textbook solutions. However, you could still find a faculty member that wants students to buy a text. So it's not like it's not allowed, but as a residency partnership lead, I talk to our faculty who are teaching these courses. Again, like even who I recommend to teach our courses, I think who's adopted the zero cost textbook solution because I want to put those folks, as long as their pedagogy is sound too, in front of our residents to offer cost savings to our students. The CSU in general is kind of taking on a lot of IHEs are working in this space around artificial intelligence and different tech resources. So we have a whole system around that to provide loaned whole bunch of technology, document cameras, laptops. Um, yeah, they're 3D printer. Like if the residents want to do a cool activity, like based in standards, not just a cool activity, they can check out the 3D printer and use that. Um, and we also meet a lot to talk about how our students are doing, how our residents are doing. We hear from the mentors, we hear from the coaches. And at times, that's where an individual plan of support can come into place. So, really getting that all documented to support the students. And that's where I really love Brene Brown's quote, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So, a lot of times we'll hear from teacher residents like, I know I need to be doing better. I just don't know how or what it's called. And so being really clear about that through the plan of support has been helpful. And then a whole host of wellness and wraparound supports. And I will get you our document that we use. So it could be something you could model for your own programs because we created a table that has all embedded links to it, what the services provide, where they get them, things like that. And so we have been approved, for example, for CalFresh. We have the letter that they can just use to get signed up for it. And so if they're individual, I think they get I think $90 a month in aid, food assistance. And then if they're a household of four, I think that almost goes up to 260 or something like that. And so that's already approved. And I will provide resources to Amy to share those with you because there's steps, and I want to share more about how we actually did that so that if you're interested, you have some guidance there. We also have our Bulldog Pantry for our food, desert issues or food insecurity. We have the Bulldog Closet, which is lightly used professional clothing that any student and community member can come and use. We also have our little Bulldog Boutique, which is diapers and baby and infant clothing. So any of our students or community members can come and get those resources as well. We also have a wonderful programs for children, the Huggins Centers in our building, and we are primarily serving our students in childcare, and it's very low cost, and so we help our residents who express that they might need some support here get on the list, and we fill out a form and a letter for them, and get them set up for those resources. And then the last one is we call it our flex time. We try to build in time weekly for the resident to have choice over how they can best use their time to support their success in the program. And so that could be substitute teaching because they would like more experience and money. It could also be meeting with their mentor teacher because they didn't get enough planning, or there's something they want to go to clinical that day because they've seen 2 weeks of some, and there's the closure and they want to be there for that. And it can also be wellness. Like we encourage them to set up their doctor's appointments if they can and other things during those flex times in the week so that they can take care of themselves. And I wanted to share one other piece that I think has been really helpful is that we've heard feedback from our candidates, especially because we have, like I said, we meet them where they're at. So a lot of times they're never on Fresno State's campus. So how do we get how, there's like a sense of like, we don't even know, like sometimes they're like, we don't feel like we belong with Fresno State sometimes. And that's just like a little hurtful to hear. And so one of the things we've been doing is thinking about which different centers or resources can we collaborate with on campus to embed certain elements into our residency programs. So what you're seeing here is the second floor of the Fresno State Library. This is the Teacher Resource Center. And this case here that you're seeing that says Singer Teacher Picks was developed by our Singer Teacher residents with their mentor teachers. And two of our faculty members teaching two different courses teamed up to kind of co-teach together in this for the Literacy Foundations course and the Culturally Sustaining Practices course. And they also connected with the lead for the Teacher Resource Center at Fresno State to create this exhibit that features their work where they were exploring social justice standards and also Sim Bishop's idea of windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors to select texts that would reflect the cultural identities of the students that they serve at their placement site. And in addition to the physical exhibit at the library that you're seeing here in this picture, they created a web page that includes book talks and classroom activities linked to standards related to the literature. So the work they did is now living on, and the metrics are pretty cool. Like there's like thousands of teachers like going to this this site that our residents like created for resources. So really those types of things, those connections make them go, oh yeah, there is a campus, there is a Fresno State. So I'll end here with just speaking to a mindset around sustainability. These are some of the high level like reflections I've had that have come over time of me doing this work. And probably the biggest one is that sustainability isn't something you solve at the end of a grant. It's something you design from the beginning. And I think even this last round of CTC funding really put that forward that had to happen. So we were seeing that in the applications or the call for applications. The programs that thrive don't just solve one of these pillars, institutional, financial, and engagement sustainability. They're working to solve all three and see how they like integrate and work with each other. Because even as I was putting these examples together, I'm like, ooh, blurred line, blurred line. Like they're starting to like work together in my head around, is that really a financial sustainability or is that an engagement sustainability example? So, and then sadly, residencies can collapse, the partnerships can fall. And so, and that's when it's largely due to partnership weakening. We can do all this work at the front end of a partnership to get it set up, get it funded, it's starting to feel sustainable. But if we leave it unattended and just assume it's like running on its own, quickly you'll see that it starts to fall apart. And so it's a consistent routine and systems of collaboration that has to keep, even in like Fresno, 11, 12 years into our cohorts with them, we are still meeting like bi-weekly. We used to meet weekly, so now we're like bi-weekly. We're kind of at a good place with that. And then I think the advocacy component, my last thought on that reflection in going through this process to prepare for today, we might start to position residencies as only preparation programs. And we're going to have more value, that value proposition, if we really start very clearly speaking to residency as a workforce development system. So it's a system for addressing the challenges that we have in our workforce. And yeah, so I hope some of this is helpful. I feel horrible that I just talked at you this whole time, but I know we're going to have some breakout time too, so you can engage around hopefully some of what you heard today. Uh, I wholeheartedly believe you have other examples of the work you're doing that are very powerful. So again, this is a snapshot of what we're doing at Fresno State, but it's not like the end all be all of what can be happening out there. I love learning from all of your different programs as well. And so just checking to see if we needed, I think we're good on the the chat. So I think Amy, should I stop share and then you'll move them into groups or any Q or how would you like to proceed?
I'd love it while we've got you for a few minutes, if there are any questions that maybe didn't come through in the chat, but people are thinking about, feel free to come off mute and ask. Heather is a great resource in this work.
In the midst of PA season, and a big focus of our seminar is on that. And I was just wondering, how do you support your residents with Ed TPA?
Mhm. Yeah, so Fresno State's a unique performance assessment model. We own our own performance assessment. So we don't work outside of like with Pearson or whatever. We have the Fresno Assessment of Student Teachers approved by the commission. And what that's really helped us do is we've actually embedded the supports into the methods content courses. So rather than it being in the seminar, it's actually embedded in the coursework. And then also the university coaches are there to provide additional, come alongside them supports. And then we do have a FAST coordinator or performance assessment coordinator that offers mandatory support. Actually, I guess they're more overviews with discussion, and then she has office hours too.
Another question I have is, do you support your mentors? Do you have a mentor seminar model, or how did they get their professional development?
Yeah, so that can look a little different based on the partner, and that's part of that early on, like who's leading what and how do we collaborate around different key components like mentor professional development. So we have one model that is largely led by the LEA, and they kind of really, with our input, take care of it. We're there, and we've done different things where, as the LEA is planning, we'll say, "Oh, this is what we heard from the mentors. Can you come and, or bring some faculty in?" And so we have then joined in and facilitated some of the mentor PL. The other model is that we would have the PIR, the university liaison, and the district liaison are creating the mentor PD, and it's usually monthly in those models. And yeah, so um, it's often driven by co-teaching practices, coaching practices, cognitive coaching. We provide from the university side in both of those models, we provide overviews and if there's changes or anything with our performance assessment as well. And we use a lot of the mentor moments like that for some feedback loops as well. I hope that helped answer that.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and get the PowerPoint back up. Oops, sorry, I know you're not seeing the right one. Let me stop share and reshare. I'm going to get you keyed up, Javier. There you go.
Sounds good. Thank you, Amy. And of course, thank you, Dr. Horsley, for all your great, great information. We want to give everybody time to process what Dr. Horsley talked about, particularly that sustainability mindset. Got us right in that great thinking moment. We do know we're kind of coming up to needing a comfort break, so we're going to combine the two because we want to maximize our last 30 minutes together. So I'm going to talk to you about what you're going to do in the breakout. We'll start those, and then you can engage with each other, but also if you need a quick break to grab something to drink or use the restroom, we're going to combine that time together, like I said, just to maximize our last 30 minutes here. So in a moment, you will be placed into some breakout groups of about 5 people. Each of those rooms will have a facilitator from either SR or the residency lab. They're going to help guide your conversation and get the note taking done for you. They'll be sharing ideas using a Padlet. And the prompts are on the screen now. The first prompt is the guiding question that Amy presented earlier today in our presentation. So, think about your own program. What creative funding approaches have we not yet explored that could be piloted or scaled to support sustainability in our context, meaning your program? And the second prompt is, what would that look like in practice in the next 12 to 24 months? So again, you'll have your facilitator to keep the conversation going and take notes. Finally, our last prompt there is we're asking each person or each program, if you have a couple people from your program, to identify one concrete step that you can take after today's session. And so the resources are in the chat. You can access the Padlet on that resources page under the section titled Resources Session 4. Look for the link called Ideation Padlet. That'll take you right to the Padlet. You can have about 15 minutes in your breakout rooms. Again, we're going to combine thinking and processing. Also, if you need to take a quick break, we'll do that. And then we'll come back together for a full group or full group to debrief. And so I think your breakout room invitation should be coming through very soon.
Amy and I were kind of watching in real time how the Padlet became kind of populated. So that was exciting to see all the different ideas that came out of the breakout rooms. We did want to give you a time and just an opportunity to reflect on your conversation and offer up some ideas that came out in your breakout rooms, maybe some aha moments, maybe some moments where you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think about that? That's an amazing idea. What can be shared for the greater good of the group? Who would like to offer something that was discussed in the breakout room?
I guess
See.
I'll jump in. I've been talking all day, so just kidding. But I had a lovely room of folks out engaging in thinking about the LCAP funds. And so any of my roommates from a few minutes ago, if you want to jump in. Um, and so really trying to figure out the LCAP piece and go back to the resources to look into that. And I was sharing that the partners that I've seen use the LCUP conversation and strategically or use it effectively have largely focused on the current classified teachers, so the teachers who are mentoring the residents, making sure that they have the PD they need. So kind of reallocating funding around teacher development to create like leadership pathways and the stipends. So in institutionalizing the funding for stipends for the mentor teachers and linking it to leadership opportunities as a teacher leader. So I said something that in my group that's probably not, it's like the unspoken, but honestly, student teachers are a risky investment. And so I don't know. I think we should all just focus on the LCAP funds for the currently hired. But plus, I feel like we talked about the student teacher stipend program, I feel like between something that comes up from our mentors is like the residents get how much money, and there's kind of like a feeling like they're not getting a financial support for all the work they do as the mentors that are so critical to the residents' development. So I was just putting that out there. I think we need to do some sustainability work around mentors, and that might be a wiser investment in the long run anyway.
I appreciate your thoughts on that, Heather. I think in relationship, you bring up a really good point about the mentorship, the mentors themselves. And they are such a critical part of residency work that it does feel like we should be pouring a little bit more into them because they are what forms the beliefs and experiences of our new residents. So thank you for bringing that up. In a conversation I was having during the breakout rooms with Amy, also in light of LCAP funds, is this idea that Javier listed on here, develop deeper alignment between residency and community schools to access CS funding. One of the things that I learned in our deep dive into LCAP funding is how important it is to leverage the audience and the people that actually approve LCAP funding. And many of those are community leaders and parents. And so just making that line between LCAP funding and the partners that are involved in that circle of work with our residency programs with community schools, which is like a new way to think about and support residency work. And I'm really like interested in kind of doing a deeper dive and more understanding of that. So I like that how he made that connection. Before we pop off and kind of move into our closing piece, I did want to call out Alana Torones. I don't know if she's still here on the call. I didn't see her, but
I'm
maybe
here.
oh, you're here. Wonderful. Oh, there you are. Now I see you. Perfect. Um, I loved your idea about the zero interest loan from LEA to cover residency costs. Can you speak just a little bit about that? Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
So that is in super early stages,
Okay.
like chart paper on the wall stages. But we just looked at the overall cost of the residency program, and what it would look like if we had our district funded as a zero interest loan, and then keep them on the same column of the salary schedule once they're hired as full-time teachers for it. It worked out to be 4 or 5 years, and that would basically pay the district back on the back end of it.
So it would be the payments would be drawn out of their, I'm sorry, their compensation?
Yeah,
No.
basically they just would stay on one column of our salary
Oh, I
schedule
understand. Okay, okay.
for four, it was 4 or 5 years. And then that savings that the district would make for them not moving over and getting those raises every year would pay back the district.
Oh my gosh, that is a really good idea.
So super early stages, but something that we talked about with our Cal Lutheran partners as a sustainability idea.
Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, in an effort to keep us on time, Amy, I am going to move us along to a last kind of plug for our planning tool. Again, Heather brought so many good ideas to today's session, and I do want to just encourage you to go back to that planning tool and record some of the ideas that came up for you today as a way to support that institutional sustainability, so that you have that artifact, that document that stays with you over the long term. And then Amy's dropping the Power Up resources again into the chat, and she will tell you a little bit more about the budget from the governor.
Yes, we definitely don't want to slow the momentum by any means around sustainability conversations, but we did just want to highlight some of the promising news in case you haven't seen it already. But the governor did recently release the proposed 2026-2027 budget summary, which does include encouraging support for residency programs. So we know the budget's not yet final, but it does kind of signal this continued recognition of the important role that residencies are playing in strengthening California's educator workforce. And if you've had a chance to look at it, you know, under the teacher preparation section is where the proposal calls out an inclusion of $250 million in one-time Prop 98 general fund dollars to continue supporting educator residency programs, both teacher and school counselor, through 2029-2030. And so as the budget process moves forward and additional details kind of become available, SRTAC and the lab will continue to keep the field updated, but we did just want to put that out there in case anyone had missed that exciting news. And then before we head into a few final reminders, we'd really appreciate your feedback on this year's series of power-ups. You'll notice this feedback form's a little different than the others in that we're looking at holistically across all 4 power-up sessions, what your insights and perspectives are on that. And that will help us continue to improve and tailor these sessions to meet your needs, especially as we go into the planning for next year's offerings for the field. And so we just encourage you to take a few minutes to complete the feedback form. There is a link on the one-page resource document that I just dropped in the chat. It's up towards the top where it asks to give feedback. You can click there or you can scan the QR code. But again, that will really help us in understanding what you found valuable this year and then what additional support or topics you might like to see us cover for next year. And then again, please don't hesitate to reach out for coaching support from either our SR Tech Hub leads or our regional TRL coaches. All of the support we provide, I know you've heard it multiple times, is complimentary. All you need to do is scan the QR code or fill out the form that's linked to the resource page, or just shoot your hub lead an email. They're readily accessible, and most of you are used to just conversing with them back and forth directly. But our hub leads they're ready to continue the sustainability conversations with you. We've been doing a lot of work this year, SR Tech and the lab, around sustainability. And so we know everyone's context is a little bit different, but your hub lead and coach are ready to talk you through kind of what potential next steps might be given your unique context. And then I just want to plug the annual symposium coming up. Be sure to mark your calendars. That's happening April 30th and May 1st in Sacramento. You can find all the registration details on our SR Tech events page, which is also linked to the one pager. I think we actually linked registration directly down at the bottom of that document. But this year's theme is supporting for today, sustaining for tomorrow. And this is, if you've never attended symposium before, it's a great opportunity to network, to collaborate, to hear from fellow peers that are doing this work and that they're willing to share tangible resources to support you in your implementation efforts. So we would love to see you there. The registration fees do change on April 4th. So we encourage you to register on or before April 3rd to avoid any late registration fees. But yeah, we really hope to see you there. We're going to be at the May Lee State Office Complex, which is the new home to the CTC. And then, yeah, we just want to thank you again for your time and engagement today. We look forward to seeing you either via a coaching call or at an upcoming event soon. But yes, we hope everyone found this valuable. We look forward to reading through your feedback. And yeah, just a huge thank you to Heather Horsley for joining us today and giving such amazing ideas that can be utilized back in your own context. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.